So future me this. I'm a global business futurist. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, working around the globe with multinationals, large corporations, startups, entrepreneurs, anybody that wants to have a conversation about tomorrow. I have been able to see through walls, around corners. I've talked about the advent of the PC, literally. I've talked about the advent of the internet. I've talked about all kinds of things and seen tomorrow long before others. But this year, in February, like every one of us on the planet, even I couldn't see that far ahead. My reality was that where normally I feel like cement, I felt like sand. There didn't seem to be an appropriate next step. And I know whenever I feel that way, for me, the only way to overcome it is to get the band together, is to talk to people, is to not be alone, is to figure out what's happening around me. And that's exactly what I did. I put the call out to my friends, to my clients, to anyone that wanted to have the conversation back in February about what today looks like and what a future might look like. And the people that came and gathered were incredible. We mourned for who we might have been and what we might have achieved. And more importantly, we made sure that each and every one of us would look over to the other and ensure that regardless of what was around us, we were looking at a horizon of possibility. Mary came along. She heads up a really large cleaning corporation around Australia and into New Zealand, thousands of employees. John came along. He has a portfolio of hotels in Melbourne and Sydney. Elizabeth came along. She's the head of a very, very large research centre. And also one of the heads of TAFE came along. These and many other people came together over the weeks that fell into March, where we began to understand that this word normal, which is something I've never believed in, was not true. That in fact, what we had was a rhythm that was out of sync, a world that we really had no understanding of. It's not that there weren't precedents before, because we began to look for them. There have been calamities in our time. What's been constant about all of those, no matter how terrible, how heinous, how much death is caused, how much negativity, there is an end to them. There is a day that comes where the world returns to a much different rhythm. And that's what we held strong to. One of my core beliefs always has been, I've driven clients crazy over the decades about this, is that I don't really care how you do it. The how and the who does it are transient. They're really about culture, they're about time, they're about technology, they're about what we believe to be best practice at this particular moment. What we need, what I need them to get back to is the why they do it, the core. Because the one thing I know is that great businesses, profitable businesses, are able to flex from their core, regardless of time and situation. They know what it is they need to achieve, and they're looking for opportunity. And they're also skirting around, making sure that things are not coming and hitting them. That was what we had to go back to. I stripped back my normal strategy, which is 2, 5, 10, and for some clients, 20 and 50 years ahead. And I brought it back to a 5-week COVID strategy. There's a link for where to find that at the bottom of this screen. That 5-week strategy spoke to the reality of the day that at this moment, we had to live life literally for the moment. Cleaning Mary came up with her why, and that was to keep people safe, to make sure that they were in a hygienic space where they felt in control. Hotel John came up with the incredible thought of the reason he has hotels and manages them is simply because people that are not where they normally would be at home needed somewhere to be instead, needed a community around them, needed a sense of safety and security. Researcher Elizabeth got into this because she believed that there was somewhere down the track a cure or a treatment for everything that was ailing humanity. And the TAFE client came about to say that really what they were about was sharing knowledge across the planet, ensuring that we could make better decisions today because we know something today that we didn't know yesterday. We could work with that because everything about the how, as you know full well, disappeared. We had to go back to basics. We had to go back to the why. The way we did it was to go back again to the core of what I've always said, and that's wham. The reality for me is that when we're developing anything, It doesn't matter whether it's today. It doesn't matter whether it was a year ago or 10 years ago or 10 or 50 years from now. I've always believed that WHAM was the way to go. W for wisdom. Let's learn as much as we can about ourselves, our situation, what's currently being done around that industry and that business, what it is that others are doing, what technology, what thoughts are ahead. Let's get wise about these things. Let's find people that know more than we do and connect to them. That's wisdom. The next bit is the A. The thing that I'm absolutely dogged about, and I have seen thousands and thousands of times, is once we increase our wisdom, the only thing that we can do is action, which is the A. It leads us to want to do something that we weren't doing before. And guess what? Once we've got that action, it creates its own momentum, which is the M. My WHAM model was what I believe was going to get us through. And then once WHAM is kicked in, the other reality for me is that it's not about strategy. Love strategy. I lectured in strategy 15 years through to postgraduate. It has its purpose, but right now, its purpose has changed significantly. For me, it's not about strategy. It's about strategy. It's about where we start the process. With strategy, what we're doing is looking a long way ahead. We're putting tactics in place. We're trying to preordain everything that might happen on that journey. And as we've seen and have the lived experience this year, that just doesn't hold anymore. Without this COVID experience, it also didn't work the way it once did. It was an industrial revolution model, a lockstep model, a cut and paste model. It made perfect sense. But now there is far more fluidity in this world. There is dynamism. Things are evolving in ways that we've never seen before. There are things around us that we didn't know yesterday or even in the last minute that now have to be taken into account. The way that I connect to that is I'm looking for my future North Star. With my clients, I'm helping them to work out where we'd like to be. What is it that we're trying to achieve? And those two end bits, the strategy, the start, which is where we are now and what we're capable of presently, connected to where we'd like to be in the future, is what I use as the momentum to move us forward. It's really an old adage. It's taken from the explorers of previous centuries. They knew where they were, and they kind of had an idea, maybe not even something on a map yet, but a direction, something they were headed for, whether that was gold or spice, whether that was to adventure for new lands, whether that was a new horizon. They knew that's where they wanted to go. They had a rough idea, possibly, of what that might mean, but they allowed circumstance to take them from start to their northern future star. They adjusted accordingly. They flexed because they knew their why. For you and I in business, that means that we need to amass around us a group of believers, what I refer to as a tribe of people that buy into that dream, that have the talents, have the wisdom, have the past experiences, and the ability also to ignore those past experiences as they better understand tomorrow's needs, tomorrow's customers, new technologies, evolving landscapes, and the implications that tomorrow might have. That's our tribe of believers. And that's where I diverge away from traditional management consulting. Management consulting, to me, by its nature, is something that's lockstep. It's something of industrial revolution. It speaks perfectly to a world where things were well understood, where there was an order, whether there was normality. Monday was pretty much followed by Tuesday. We knew what people were going to do. And if we did step A, B, and C, we were likely to get to D and E. Maybe a bit of tweaking, but that's all that it would take. We've seen this year again how impertinent that was, how impossible that was, how you and I had to step up to the plate, and how we had to imagine bigger and differently if we were going to survive even to today. And that's one size doesn't fit all. The billions and billions of dollars that consulting groups made in the past, all have deserved, all with incredible foresight, incredible insight, and incredible results. Otherwise, they would not have achieved what they achieved, nor their clients. Again, today doesn't stack up. Traditional consulting has four major functions. One is information gathering. The second is expertise. The third is insight and foresight. And the fourth is execution. They're the traditional functions, all wonderful, robust, important things that we need to be concerned with. But the reality was that even in these halcyon days, where we took into account those 4 key areas and developed incredible, robust strategies that were implemented in corporations around the world. 74% of them never worked. They failed. With the best of intent, the best of people, the best of skills, and the best of consulting, they failed. Why? The answer, I think, is really simple. It lies in yesterday, today, and definitely tomorrow's landscape. Information was once something you could contain. You could keep it to yourself, and knowing something somebody else didn't know would sell for millions and billions of dollars. Made perfect sense. Today, that information is readily available. It's distributed across the planet. It is available in abundance. It has absolutely no value whatsoever. Knowledge was taking that information and turning it into something a bit more purposeful. Again, we could do that in spades in our sleep, and in fact, often we did, or it looked like it anyway, for me especially. But knowledge is now available inside Salesforce. It's available inside a CRM. We can do a survey from SurveyMonkey and for no money whatsoever, talk to as many people as we can reach and find out what they think. So knowledge is now no longer something that's just the purview of a few. It's abundant. It almost has no value in itself. So why would we pay a management consultant to give that to us? And while we're talking about management consultants, it was once the domain of a consulting group to bring together a group of people that were incredibly wise, that knew an area or a niche like nobody else, who could speak and consult and think about that area in the most incredible and unique ways. Today, I can find that person anywhere, literally by a simple Google search. I can go into freelancer.com. I can go into Fiverr. I can go into Upwork. There are a myriad of spaces and places on the planet where I can get a single individual. I can get she or he to spend time with me physically or digitally, and we can concoct the most incredible thoughts, strategies, and tactics, and I can bring as many people in from around the globe as I need to and want to. So again, the management consulting model of old doesn't hold up. And when we talk about execution, I often needed somebody to be accountable to. It made perfect sense. But today, again, I can do that from technology. I can do a simple task or a to-do list. I can get a more robust artificial intelligence, understanding of what I'm going to do, what the implications, ramifications are, and some thoughts from a piece of technology that's benign. And it can sit in the background and monitor me to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. Give me that little nudge if I need it. Bring me a little bit more wisdom from wherever it's founded that makes what I'm about to do easier than before. What is it that I'm going to management consultants for? For me, as always, I've argued over the decades that what people truly want to buy is wisdom and humanity. I did a project 2 years ago working with one of the large 4 consulting firms. I had 250 of their best minds. The first thing I wanted to do when I took on that assignment was to better understand their world and their clients. We went back over about 4 years of clients, and we put them into 2 categories. One were the statutory requirements that came to that organization because of its brand. It was required by government. They were doing audits, or there was a real need to have that big brand name attached to that project. Made perfect sense. That was likely to continue. What I found, which wasn't as surprising to me, but was to them, was that the vast majority of new clients, about 70%, were not coming because of the brand. They weren't coming because of the technology, which they assumed. What they came for was the partner, the person, the human, the wisdom. That's why they were attaching themselves. The other 2, the brand and the technology, supported that human to give that client an incredible step ahead of anyone else. Humanity and wisdom was the number 1 reason that they were gaining new business. So that brings us back to COVID in February. Having all of that in my toolkit, all of that previous learned wisdom, understanding it was about the why, not the how and the who. We could strip those back to find new ways to do old things. For me, the message I was sending out to my tribe of people that we'd assembled in those days, to Mary, to John, to Elizabeth, and to all the other clients, it was about humanity. It was about the ability to improvise based on their core strengths. It was for each of them to understand that they could still do what they needed to. It might have been compromised. The business model may have disappeared temporarily. It may not be elegant. They may not have the staff or the resources, but truly they could go back to the why and find a how to make that why possible until we could return to a rhythm that was more comfortable and hopefully more profitable. For Mary in cleaning, looking at the world in February, it seemed really dark. It seemed literally as if they would never be able to go into an office or a person's home, but unfortunately for all of the wrong reasons. We know the cleaning industry boomed. In fact, it became the most important thing in our lives. Hygiene, cleaning, making sure our surfaces were all attended to. And guess what? Business has boomed. For John, even though hotels stopped serving people in the way they did before, we began to look at new ways that we could offer the same facilities. We weren't kidding ourselves. We knew 100% occupancy was going to be a way off. We knew the traditional ways of doing things were not a part of it. But there were things that we could use our accommodation and our premises for. And my researcher, Elizabeth, God bless her, we couldn't get people back on site to do the research. But there was ways that we could begin to use the current time to do different things around the research, to use different researchers' abilities to understand different landscapes. And yes, some of them pushed into the COVID and allied industries. And for TAFE, what TAFE had to do, as every learning institution had to do, was create micro TAFEs. Each individual teacher had to take her or his classroom home. Again, lumpy and bumpy. We've had the most incredible evolution of education based on what we could do, sticking to the why and relearning and redoing the how. So now we sit hopefully at the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, one or the other, moving into a post-COVID world. For me, the reality is that COVID will never leave us. Look, I hope we get a cure. I know we're going to get some sort of a jab that we can take, hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months. But COVID, like flu, like polio, like tuberculosis, even though we may be able to tame it, is going to be a part of our life. It's definitely changed our psyche. We went into warp speed. We went through a black hole and we came out the other end 5 or 10 years ahead with lived experiences that we never, ever would have thought that we would live through. All of us change the way we work. We change the way we think. We change the purpose of work as well. For those that could distribute their work into their homes or somewhere else, they worked project and task. They worked to outcome, not to input. It wasn't 9 to 5 anymore. And also the government stepped in. For better or for worse, political argument aside, we tried the experiment of universal basic wage, which was something for 20 years I've talked about and tried to get a conversation around. We did it overnight and saw how important it was. Now, I'm not suggesting any of these things need to be a part of our tomorrow, but unfortunately, for the wrong reasons, I'm thrilled that all these things that we thought were impossible, that we couldn't do because of our legacy systems, our stuck in the mud thinking, the way we've always done it, which is what I heard day in, day out, everywhere I went on the planet. All of those got blown away because it just didn't make sense anymore. The question is, how do we make something good out of what's been bad? What do we take forward out of COVID that we want to continue with? What is it that tomorrow's management consultant does and becomes in order to take this incredible planet and the people forward into tomorrow's landscape? Already, the hotel industry is vastly different. We're talking about a totally different experience. Of course, hygiene and all the rest of it has been ramped up, but strangely enough, we've made sure it's still in the background because you and I, as travelers, don't want to see those signs everywhere. We just need to be assured that that's been taken care of. We've already talked about the cleaning business, and that's just grown leaps and bounds. They've literally put on hundreds of people over the past few months. Education and TAFE have, as we know, changed forever what it is that was possible. And research. If we have not learned about the impact and necessity for research, we have now. Look at what we have done to try and tame and maybe cure this COVID thing. In months, we have collaborated across the planet. People that would not otherwise talk and share are readily talking and sharing. Governments have stripped away all of the can't do. We've done it with great care. We're sure that we're sticking to the why. We're sure that what we will achieve will be as efficable as possible. But we have taken away the how and the who. We've streamlined everything. We've learned some incredible things out of COVID. We have to, as humans, find some value in all of this tragedy. And as management consultants, it's our role to guide that into the future. So the question is now, what's your strategy? What's your guiding future North Star? What's your wham? So now it's time to do what we all do best, the management consultant role. I want to take us forward to 2025. I want us to look at the future of management consultants, given what we know of history, given of what we know of the last year, and what we've spoken about already in our conversation and in the previous conversations this morning. We're going to go into our breakout groups, and in each breakout group, we're going to look at one specific question for 10 minutes. I want the group to ponder their thoughts, to collect their incredible insights and foresights, and then to come back after the 10 minutes and share it with a larger group. In the chat notes, you'll find your specific question. If it's breakout group 1, of course, you need breakout group 1 sheet. And the next thing I'm going to say, no surprise, I'm a futurist. If you're in breakout group 2, the sheet you're looking for is breakout group sheet 2. So for the next 10 minutes, in each of your groups, dig deep, imagine big, be audacious. Let's talk about and come back and see if we can solve and resolve some of the issues that collectively we're going to face over the next year and years ahead. So over to you. See you in 10 minutes.